Welcome to the Self-Publishing School podcast. This is the podcast to listen to if you're an aspiring writer or an author who wants to be more successful. On this show, you'll learn how to write and launch a book successfully, all from the top authors and people just like you who are doing it at the highest level. I'm your host, Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, the author of the book called Published, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. For free training on how to publish a book that sells 10,000 copies, go to selfpublishing.com/free training. What's up, everybody? Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Ryan Deiss. So if you haven't heard of Ryan, he's the co-founder of Idea Incubator LP and CEO of digitalmarketer.com. Over the last 36 months, Ryan and his team have invested over $15 million on marketing tests, generated millions of unique visitors, sent over 1 billion, that's billion with a B, permission-based emails, and run approximately 3,000 split and multivariant tests. Ryan's also a highly sought-after speaker and consultant who his work has impacted over 200,000 businesses in 68 different countries. You might know Ryan through Digital Marketer. That's probably where you've heard of him. He's a master marketer, master businessman, and that's what I'm really excited to dive into in this interview is the whole back end of the book and kind of how he's done that, and also get into a marketing piece, and then probably towards the end we'll geek out a little bit on business and have some fun there. So Ryan, welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I know you've been sick the past few days, so hopefully you're feeling all better and we'll be rocking and rolling.
Yeah, if you see me kind of start to pass out, I'm like, I'm going to apologize in advance. But yeah, I know this is my first day out of bed in a little bit, so if I seem kind of pale and clammy, that's why. But my brain, I think, is more or less functioning, so we should be good.
Awesome. Well, for starters, you just released the book, Visible Selling Machine, pretty recently. And I want to talk about, kind of kick off with that, is you've got a thriving business. Digital Marketer is just crushing it. You guys are growing like crazy. You just had an event in Australia. I mean, I know you guys are expanding to a lot of different countries. So in the midst of all that and the business growing like crazy, why do a book?
A book is timeless, right? This is a medium that has persisted for so long, and I think that's because people get it, right? I mean, people understand books. When you take knowledge and you publish it digitally, that means something, but it means a totally different thing when you take that knowledge and you take the time to actually put it in a printed form and bind it and give it to someone. And so for me, I didn't really, in the past, people always said, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. I didn't really know what to say that I hadn't already said so many other times, so many other places, and I didn't know how to talk long enough about one subject to actually fill up a book. And then finally, when it came to this topic of email marketing and invisible selling and really how we do follow-up marketing, I said, this is it. This is a good topic. It's a good concept. It's one I've written about a lot. It's one I've talked about a lot. And there's very little written about it, oddly enough. So this is a good opportunity. I think if you're going to write a book, the first reason always has to be because you have something to say, right? Not just I want to write a book because I want to have a book. Well, that's adorable, right? But the market doesn't care what you want, right? Do you have something to say that's going to be meaningful to the market? In this case, I did. So that was why we decided to go ahead and put it out.
And what was the purpose for this book in terms of the business? Because I know obviously you had the launch of the machine, and that was a big push. And I know that this fed into that. But what was the overall purpose for this specific book?
Yeah, I mean, this book we did see as being a lead generator, for it being media for us. I mean, that's really the way that we approach books. I mean, I've said to authors so many times, and hopefully this has come out in other interviews as well, but, and I know you know this, Chandler, but a book is not a business. A book can really help jumpstart a business. It can help get you, from not having much of a name to having a bigger name just through the distribution that can occur in the medium of the book. But a book in and of itself is not a business. So we were fortunate. Now, I would never write a book about something unless it was clear to me that, okay, the next logical progression from the book is here. And I would want to make sure that I had here before I wrote the book. And yeah, in this case, we had the machine, and the machine is 36 email campaign templates plus training on how to do it. So these are all the 36 different campaigns that we use in our business that we've kind of templatized and we've bundled up and sold as a template pack. And we had sold that successfully for about a year. And, and the only way to really even get the concept was to invest the $2,000 to get all the templates. So I said, well, really, the concept stands alone. And people need to understand the concept, even if they never invest in the templates. And so that's why we really said, let's splinter off from this core offering, the concept, and turn that into the book, roughly. I mean, it at least formed the foundation of the book.
Got it. And what did the creation of that book look like? Because you already had the course, you're already teaching it. So I imagine the book creation part was pretty easy, or was it hard?
Well, funny enough, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be because a book is such a different medium. And for something to read like a book, whereas the course is so much video. And so I can explain different concepts. I can point at things and say, look at that, see how that works. And people, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. You don't really have the benefit of that. I mean, in a book, I mean, even if you use images, you can only do so much. And so I really had to think through how I was going to teach these concepts when you get into narrative form and stuff like that. There's also a lot when you're teaching how to that, again, when you're standing in front of a video like we're doing here, that you can evoke certain emotions, certain things that it's harder to do in print. So no, what was interesting, the first couple drafts when we just tried to pull concepts from the transcripts and stuff like that were terrible. They were almost unreadable. And I've seen people turn transcripts into books and they're inherently kind of right? And I think that's because it was designed for a different medium. And so what I actually had to do is I had to say, okay, if I were going to teach this concept over, 90 minutes to 2 hours, how would I do it? And what would I start? And what I actually did is I went back and I taught a webinar. I did a webinar on the topic, and this was cool because this allowed me to do a couple things. Number one, you've heard the story, I'm sure, about Tim Ferriss, split testing the title of the 4-Hour Work Week using Google AdWords.
Yep.
Right? Classic book author story. Well, for me, I was mailing my own list, but I think somebody clicking on an ad is one thing. To me, if they register for something, it's far more impactful. So we actually split tested a bunch of different webinar titles. So webinar titles and subtitles. And so check this out. So the webinar title that won was The Invisible Selling Machine, right? Now we tested a number of different webinar titles. That was the one that won. That was the one that got the most registrants. The subtitle that won, which I can't remember what it was now, but it is now on the subtitle of the book. That was the subheadline of the page, and the bullet points for the webinar are the bullet points that are on the back of the book. So pretty much we were able to test all of that by getting people to register for the webinar. And then when I structured the webinar, I said, okay, if I'm going to structure a webinar, what's a good way to do it? Well, number one, I want to open up with a story that really lays the foundation, that lays the groundwork of it. And I told a little narrative, and I told a story about how we got here, right, and what happened. And then I gave proof about the result that I had. Because I'm a big believer in saying, okay, here's the result I got. And then if people are interested in, they'll tune in. I thought the same would be true for a book, right? Let's lead with an engaging story that leads to a result. And if somebody says, okay, interesting story, and I want that result, then they'll tune in to learn more. So then I just broke down the step by step of what happened. And at the end, I, addressed some known objections and talked about some things. And really, when it was done, it was a good structure of a book. And so that's what, fortunately for me, I have an editor. I have Russ Henneberry, who's the editorial director of Digital Marketer. And Russ was able to take that webinar and all the concepts and my incessant ramblings and really turn that into a book. Then he handed it back to me. I rewrote probably 90% of it. And not that Russ isn't a great editor and not that Russ can't do a good job matching my voice, because he does it all the time, but I really wanted this to be able to say that I wrote this book. And I really wanted to make sure that if somebody said, why'd you say it like that, that I could answer for it. And it wasn't like, well, that's what my editor wrote, right? Or that's what my ghostwriter wrote. And so we went back and forth a couple of times, but once we settled on, okay, let's take the concept and teach it in a webinar, the whole process took like 3 weeks. It was amazing. Prior to that, we'd worked on it for months because we were trying to take a totally different medium and morph it and squeeze it into a book, which just didn't work.
Yeah, got it. That's interesting. I've never heard anyone do it that way.
Yeah, it wasn't like, ooh, great idea. It was totally accidental, but it worked out. I'd recommend it.
So were you struggling at the point where you said, we're going to do this webinar, and then after the webinar, you're like, whoa, there's the book? Or did you do the webinar with the intent of maybe we can create this into the book?
No, we did. Yeah, no, I wasn't that intentional about it. I wasn't that strategic. I wasn't that smart. No, we were struggling, and we had kind of set the project aside because we were planning on doing a big promotion for the book. We had it slotted into our marketing calendar that, okay, the book surely should be done by this day. So let's plan on promoting the book on this day. Well, we didn't have the book done yet. And so I said, guys, I'm just going to do a webinar. I'm just going to do a big teaching webinar where I just teach and talk about the invisible selling machine, the machine, whatever, we'll come up with a cool name for it. I didn't want to call it the machine because we'd already launched it. So I didn't want to get it confused. And that's the whole reason that I tested different webinar titles or webinar. I probably would have even thought to do that. I would have just come up with one, but it worked out. So and thus the book was born.
Got it. Did you sell at the end of that webinar?
Yeah, we made a very soft offer. But yeah, at the end of that webinar, we said, if you like this, there's the machine. It didn't sell particularly well because it wasn't designed to sell. Really, I said I'm going to give a content webinar for the most part.
I imagine that's probably similar to how the book reads, right? It's a soft like, hey, and there's this thing.
Yeah, very soft. At the end of the webinar, I think I might mention the machine, but I did not want. I've bought books before that were essentially disguised sales letters, and I hate that.
Yes.
As the reader,
Yeah.
I hate that, and I was not going to be about that.
Hmm.
I wanted the book to stand alone, and I think that's important. I really do. I think that's important, and it's important one just because somebody paid for it, right? You should deliver value well over and above what they paid for. So I think you have a moral obligation to do that. But also, if you just look at Amazon today, it's also the reason, by the way, to write a real book and not just put out a poorly edited transcript. You will get
Hmm.
eviscerated in your reviews if your book is a disguised sales letter, and that
Hmm.
will hurt. It will hurt your rankings. It will hurt your sales. It'll hurt everything. I mean, fortunately, that book has really good sales, and people come up to me and they say, wow, I'm surprised this was actually a good book. And I'm like, what? Like, why are you so surprised? I said, because most of the books that are put out by marketers are just kind of puff pieces, or they're disguised sales letters and those types of things. And this is like a real book. Yeah, that was the point. We wanted to write a real book.
When you guys were split testing the webinar titles, was it for that same webinar or did you hold multiple ones? Were you split testing it inside that email or was it over the course of different webinars?
No, it was just that one webinar. Yeah,
Cool.
we only did that webinar one time because again, it was just to fill time. We had a spot on the marketing calendar. We had to do something, and where we didn't have a promotion ready, I said, well, I'm just going to do some content. But there was no real need. Like I said, it didn't sell particularly well because it wasn't designed to sell. So for me to go out and repeat that same webinar again and again and
Yeah.
again would be sort of detrimental. So I mean, the whole thing, I'm not kidding, was a fluke. It was a total fluke. The book came about because we had failed to write the book, oddly enough. Because I was just trying to, and I did what everybody else did. I tried to shortcut it, right? I tried to shortcut it. I tried to say, we've already got this product. Just take the transcripts from this and this, patch it. I'm sure it'll be fine. Wasn't fine, and so that's how it came about.
Now, do you remember any of the other split test titles that lost out to the Invisible Sound Machine?
As I was saying that, because I knew you would ask, I was trying to think. We played around with the word invisible, and it was like the automatic and the hands-free, I think was kind of where we were going with it. We tested sales versus selling, oddly enough. And so, but it was little nuances like that. But I think we only tested 3 or 4 different variations. We really can't test a whole lot more than that, or we're not really going to get statistical significance.
So was this one the winner by a long shot, or was it kind of slight edge?
I think like sales and selling were more or less the same, and but invisible beat automatic and hands free, which
Got
seemed odd to me, right? I wouldn't have thought that. If I were to pick, I would have thought an autopilot or an
yeah.
automatic or a hands free because it's a little more evocative.
Hmm.
It suggests a benefit would have outperformed, but I guess the idea of the invisible got it, and actually hands free is in the subtitle. So it was like the 5-step hands free autopilot. So we got the hands free and autopilot in the subtitle, and so I think having the more evocative, curiosity driven headline with a more benefit rich specific subheadline won. That was what won the day.
Interesting.
So.
So curiosity then drawing them in with the title and then benefits hitting them in the subtitle.
And that's not uncommon. We've seen that win in headlines. You'll have a grabber at the top, so you'll see a classic headline structure in the financial space was liars, 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 right? And then it was okay, who's lying? What are they lying about? You've got to answer what it is. If you're going to use a big grabber like that, you have to answer it fairly quickly. And sort of the invisible selling machine, while not as much of a grabber as liars, 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 was enough of a grabber that people said, "What is that?" Oh, it's about email marketing. Great, I'll check that out.
I'm glad you mentioned the part of you got to answer it because I think it's just hilarious when people put that curiosity attention grabber subject line and then just don't even address it.
It,
And it just
yeah.
pisses people off so much.
It's also not good enough in this culture, right? Because okay, you
No.
got someone to glance, right? That's at best you're getting someone to maybe glance when you do that. But 3 seconds later, Kim Kardashian is going to do something to make them glance, and then she's probably going to do something after that that's going to make them stare, right? So a curiosity thing, a grabber, that can cause someone to glance, but without a direct benefit, without speaking to someone's desired end result, you're never going to get them to stare. And I think that's the difference, right? How can you turn a glance into a stare? So
Absolutely.
hopefully that's what a title subtitle does.
Yeah. Now, moving into the marketing portion of the book, I know once you guys launched it, I mean, you had the machine coming up as well, and that kind of fed into that. But how much did you guys go in for the marketing, and how did you guys balance that versus the other stuff that you were doing at the company?
It was towards the end of the year when it came out, and actually, and this is a totally true story. A lot of people when we did this promotion, like, oh, that's really, really smart. No, like when we were super rushed, and I had a goal of getting this book done by January 1st, 2015. I really wanted it done before then. I wanted it done by the end of the year, this last year. And so I rushed my team, but I was traveling and they were going back and forth on these different covers. And ultimately, I said, okay, yeah, pick this one. And I sent the wrong one that I wanted, and they picked the wrong cover. Well, it was my fault, but the wrong cover was selected. And then, in addition to that, the printer messed up, where all the pages that were supposed to be left were now on the right side, which makes a big difference, right? You now have chapters starting kind of in weird places. It just jacked everything up. In fact, I'm oddly enough, so I'm using some books to stack up my computer, and one of the books that I'm using to stack up my computers is one of the first prints. So I'm going to draw it down just a little bit. Here it is. Not particularly attractive, and actually my daughter found this one and put a little heart sticker on it, which didn't make me feel any better. But yeah, this book, look at this printing on the inside. How bobo is that? I mean, this is just about as poorly done as you can get, but oh yeah, we had 10,000 of them. And so I did a promotion where I said, hey, look, when these things arrived, I remember my heart sank. I was so disappointed because you get your, I mean, man, you're an author, right? You remember what it feels like to get that first set of books, those first proofs, and you open the box and you pull it out, and it's like, you haven't had kids yet, but it's like a baby being born, and you're like, ew, it's ugly. And it was so, fortunately all my children were beautiful, but this I was so disappointed. I mean, so unbelievably disappointed when this book came out. But like, what are we gonna do? We got 10,000 of them. We still got a place on the marketing calendar for we're gonna promote this. So I did a free book sale and I explained what happened. And people, it's so funny in our marketing community. People are so cynical. They're like, "Oh, you did that for the no, I didn't. I'm not that. I'm not that. Number one, that's called lying. But even still, like, I wouldn't spend the money to print 10,000 of these suckers wrong just so I could do
Yeah.
a promotion. I wouldn't do that, right? I wouldn't do that. So we had 10,000 of these things, and I got on, I had set up a camera, and I said, hey, Ryan Deiss here. My first book is out. Yay, really exciting, except, oops, I screwed up the cover, screwed up the interior. I'm still proud of the content, but I'm not proud of the way it looks. So if you're the type of person who doesn't judge a book by their cover, then
Oh, yeah.
which is something I just pulled straight out of my butt as I was on camera, then I'd love to send you the book for free. And that's exactly what I did. And we did the book. It just pay shipping and handling. And really when it was all said and done, it was pretty much just, I think we charged $4.95 shipping and handling, which depending on where we were shipping it, for the most part, it cost about $4.95. And we had in these a little under $1 to get these printed. And so we just about broke even selling these, getting rid of these books. And I just wanted them out of stock, really. But what was great is when I was done on the other side of it, it was just a video of me saying, hey, so let me tell you the story of this book. And I talked about the machine, and I said, if you'd like some more information about the machine, you can click a link below to get more information. It wasn't a one-click upsell. It wasn't an immediate upsell. It wasn't a really hard sales message. I said, if you want more information, then click the more information link. If you don't, click the no thanks link, and you can be taken to the thank you page. Over 80% of the people clicked the yeah, I want more information link. And this promotion wound up producing about $250,000 in sales in a week.
That's awesome.
All in
And
all, it was good.
that's the first promo, the I printed the wrong book promo.
Yeah, the first promo was the I printed the wrong book promo, which again was totally sincere. If you're going to model this at home, I don't necessarily recommend this unless you could go out and say, I'm really excited to have my book. I mean, it was essentially a free book promo, right? And you've seen people do this. Jeff Walker's done this. Brendan Burchard's done this. It's not a new concept of get my new book for free, just pay shipping and handling. Just for me, I had a different reason why. My cover is ugly. And there were lots of people, oddly enough, who said, no, that's okay. I'm going to wait until the real cover comes out. And there were lots of people who said, I don't care. There were tons of people who, when the real cover did come out, and I decided to go ahead and do hardback for the next print run, and we did a totally new cover, totally new interior, everything made it look a lot better. And this one, incidentally, never made it to Amazon. I never put this on Amazon. It never had an ISBN number. We were in such a rush. Nothing. The next version did. It had all those fancy things. And I still came out initially and I said, hey, the new version of my book is out. I'd like to give away some free copies. And that's exactly what we did. We gave away some more free copies of that one and a slightly different funnel on the back. And that one we put people into a trial for Digital Marketer Lab. We just had a more advanced funnel in place and I think upsold another kind of mid-range product. And then in addition to giving people the opportunity to direct purchase the machine, we also put them in a perpetual launch. So they got as a bonus 3 additional training videos. Well, those 3 additional training videos were the pre-launch for the machine.
Got it. That's awesome. So you had this second launch. Did you get any pushback from people who said you gave away the other one for free, now you're giving this one away for free? Was there any pushback from people on that?
No, we charged a little more for it for the shipping and handling, and so the offer was a little bit different. I'd have to go back and look. And in fact, what we might have said is you can get the book for $10 and I'll ship it for free. So it wound up being about the same. And in fact, that's exactly what we did. I think we said you can get the book for just $10 and I'll send it to you for free, just like Amazon. This is what we
Got
did.
it.
So,
And was this
yeah.
pre-selling or was this once the book was already available on Amazon?
When we first did it, the book wasn't available on Amazon because it hadn't yet shipped to Amazon. I didn't even know how to do all that stuff yet. In fact, initially it was set up wrong. We set it up as an Amazon seller selling like a used book. And so, I mean, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And we should have investigated, right? Should have asked some people. But my thing is always, let's go out and make a big mess. And I also never cared about the Amazon rankings. That was the thing. I never cared about the Amazon rankings. This book has sold nearly 20,000 copies in a short enough period of time that it would be on the New York Times bestseller list if I cared. But I don't care about making the list. The goal for the book was not to make the list, right? The goal, I don't care about that. It's the same reason why I didn't want to go through a traditional publisher, right? I'm fortunate that I own my own media. And I think that with my own lists and things like that, I don't have to depend on somebody else's media. I wanted to use the book as a tool to get a message out there so that I could onboard people into Digital Marketer. That's what I wanted it for. And so a lot of people, and this is a cool little trick, by the way, on our order form. If you go to Invisible Selling Machine, if you go to buy and then leave, we say, wait, before you go, would you rather buy it through Amazon? And so we give people an opportunity right there to click and to go and purchase it on Amazon. Now we get a ton of sales every single day through Amazon, and it's starting to climb the ranks in Amazon. And I'm sure that eventually it's going to wind up ranking very high in its categories in Amazon. And I'm sure I'll get emails from people saying, oh, you rank #1 for this category, and that'll be great. But it's not the purpose of this book, right? It's not the reason that this book exists. So if it happens, great. But I wasn't going to be dependent upon Amazon. I wasn't going to use it as a pre-sell and then move all the sales through Amazon. No, they're my sales. These are my customers, right? I wanted the sales going through my shopping cart so that I can control the experience, so that I can control, what gets sent out. I mean, I wanted to have total control of it. And so no, it wasn't a pre-sales kind of thing.
Got it. And so the total control aspect, I imagine that too ties into the publishing part, because you mentioned about, this is why you didn't go the publishing route. And we talked a little bit about this before the interview, but you want to touch on that fact, the fact that you've been offered publishing deals and you've turned those down, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I've had publishers offer me, I've had agents come through and say, hey, XYZ publisher would love to do a single book deal for you for $500,000 advance, and if you'd be willing to do a multi-book deal, it could be a multi-million-dollar advance. And thank you, I appreciate it. There might come a day, one day, where being on the New York Times bestseller list or being a quote unquote published author, the way that some would define it, becomes a bucket list item for me. That day is not today. This book, both its ugly cousin here and its much prettier version, has produced millions of dollars in revenue for me. And I own 100% of it. I control 100% of it. I put it out at my pace. And so somebody coming along and saying, okay, we'll pay you a $500,000 advance. Yeah, but then I'm having to, if I want to use my book as a tripwire, for example, which is what we call kind of a front end entry point offer, now I have to go and buy a wholesale from the publisher. So now I'm having to go to the publisher and I'm buying from them for what, $7, $8, I guess. I mean, you would know better than I do. If I'm going to go and publish my book or buy my own book from the publisher, $7, $8, yeah. Or, I might get a wholesale deal. I might, if I, depending on if I go through, a smaller publisher, then maybe they'll let me buy at cost. But still, it's going to be more than I can get if I handle the process myself. And so right then and there, what I can charge for the book to bring people in is more. I have to charge more, which is going to impact my ability to front end it. Again, the creative aspect of it, if I want to put certain things in, they might argue with me about it. I don't like to argue with people about my own stuff. I don't see me doing well with that. But the bigger issue, man, I don't know if you've experienced this, the timeline. So I had finally got to a point where I was talking with the publisher, and because frankly they had made an advance offer that was so lucrative, I was like, I gotta at least think about this. This is a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot that I can do even if I just take 100% of the advance and use it to buy back books and put it into marketing. They're willing to front end load a pretty gigantic marketing campaign. Uh, I gotta look into this, and it actually would have worked. That's the area where it would make sense. If you're willing to take a really big advance and put it back into the campaign itself, which is what the publishers want you to do to sell more books, right? Which I was more than willing to do, but they're talking about 12 to 18 months before the book gets out on the shelf.
And that's the short end of the stick. Like that's
Right.
the
Well,
minimum,
no, and,
right?
and that was my point. Like, I wanted to really negotiate that. Like, that was my prime negotiating thing. And the best that they could do, like, if we really hustle, like, 12 to 18 months, maybe. I'm like, what? So
Oh,
that to me was the biggest deal killer of all. I mean, certainly in a lot of the stuff that I'm writing about in 12 to 18 months, are you kidding me? We'll have changed. I've already changed around. We're on the third printing of Invisible Selling Machine. I've changed it a little bit every time, just tweaking different stuff and just fixing spelling mistakes and stupid grammar errors. But stuff changes. 12 to 18 months. I don't know, I could be dead in 12 to 18. I'm not going to wait 12 to 18. What takes 12 to 18 months
yeah,
today?
yeah.
Nothing. So that was, to me, that was the bigger reason why I was like, I can't do it. Timing. There may come a day. There is a place for it. If I can write some giant piece that's just so awe-inspiring that it will inspire for generations to come, probably won't. But if I can come up with that, then maybe I'll keep you posted.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here. I hope you're loving this episode so far. It's time to go from inspiration to implementation. All right, so if you've learned something, we want to help you implement what you've learned with your book. So, what I want you to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a publishing consultation with one of the experts on my team. We'll talk about your goals for your book, your dreams, your challenges, your next steps, and we'll start putting together a plan. All right, so go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a call with the team. Let's see how we can help with your book. It's time to implement. Now, what was interesting to me when you were talking a little bit ago is that you guys switched the back end offer between the wrong book cover launch and the like the one with the new cover and the real launch. So what went into your thought process behind that, and why did you switch from the machine to doing DM Labs as the front end offer?
Yeah, pretty simple. We weren't ready the first time. I mean, I can't tell you, man, how many of the things that we do that people take as intent that really they come down to the fact that we're just so busy, sometimes things slip through the cracks. So it was coming towards the end of the year, and I was traveling. I was gone. I mean, the week before Christmas, I'm gone. I mean, and the week between Christmas and New Year's, we pretty much shut down the office. And at the same time, we do traffic and conversion summit the first part of the year, so the team's kind of crazy with that. There's just a lot going on. We had this promotion slotted, and we're like, yay, the book's done. But the funnel wasn't. But kind of all of us forgot that. And so here we were, we wanted to put out the book. I didn't have time to record, I really didn't want to go from a free book into, hey, thank you for buying my book. Now can I have $2,000? Right? That's a little bit like, sure was nice meeting for coffee. Would you like to get married? You kind of need to put some steps in between there. And so when I decided instead, originally we were just going to say, you know what, let's just sell the book. And everybody who gets it, tell them on the thank you page, hey, as an unadvertised bonus, here's some additional training videos that you can go through. And here's an additional mini class that you can register for, is actually how we were going to do it. Here's an additional mini class that you can register for. And obviously that mini class was going to be opting in for a perpetual version of our launch, right, for the machine. And so we figured it's not going to, we're not going to, the immediate sales aren't going to be as high because we're not going to really have an immediate upsell, but we'll get it. We'll get it over the next 14 to 21 days as the perpetual launch does what it does. We're just going to have to wait for it. And that, by the way, the perpetual launch is one of the campaigns that we talk about in the machine. It is one of the campaigns inside of the machine, and it's one of the campaigns that I talk about inside of Invisible Selling. There's a little bit of a meta thing where I could say, when you sign up for this, you're also going to be able to see, one of the ways that we can do email follow-up, right? So we were going to settle with that. And then last minute, I said, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's go ahead and try to get an immediate sale. There are people who are buying this book who have heard about the machine. They're going to be ready to buy. And so let me just record a quick, it was like a 3 or 4 minute video. I said, I don't want to make an immediate offer, but if I can do this kind of intermediate bridge, sort of semi-upsell concept where I basically upsell them to the upsell, but it's optional, right? So it's an optional upsell. If you don't want to see the upsell, you don't have to see the upsell. If you want more information, so it was really passive. And we've gone back and we've tested this in some other upselling applications, and it's actually performed better in a lot of cases than I would have thought it would, because you buy something and now all of a sudden you're being presented with a new offer. It's a little bit nerve-wracking. But if somebody says, hey, you got this and that's great, there's another thing that I think would work really well, you don't necessarily have to have it. Here's why I think you would want it. If you'd like more information, click the link. If you don't, then click the no thanks link. Well, then it's a risk-free proposition. Like, there's no risk in me clicking the link. Certainly if I right click, open in a new tab, that no thanks is still there waiting for me. And so that's why I decided, let me give this a shot. I just wanted that buffer in between going from the free book into the $2,000 thing. So it's a total last minute thing, but it worked really, really, really well. And I think more than half of the sales that came in from that campaign, I did around $250,000, like I said, and more than half of the sales were from the immediate upsell, which I was really shocked. I definitely did not expect that. And it doesn't mean that necessarily doubled sales, because I'm sure a lot of those people who bought immediately would have bought in the perpetual launch anyway, but I'm sure it was a plus overall. And certainly getting the money sooner rather than later was a biggie.
Interesting. So it's almost like a permission based, like asking for permission to show them the upsell. So then they feel like they're more in control, and then they go to the upsell, and then it's like, well, this is something that I said, yes, I want to see. So I'm inherently more interested to actually watch the video.
Exactly. I think there's a micro commitment aspect to it. And then when we roll out the new funnel, I knew I wanted to put people into Digital Marketer Lab because that's our main thing. At Digital Marketer, we want members, we want subscribers, we want people into Digital Marketer Lab. That is our flagship pillar offering. And so to not, given the volume of people that would be going through this, we were selling thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of books, to not give these people an opportunity to join Digital Marketer Lab would be a big waste. And so I knew I wanted the first thing to be, hey, great, you've got my book. But now I'd like for you to, since you got the book, I'd like for you to take a dollar trial into Digital Marketer Lab, and I'll give you some other things too. And then I believe we did an offer for Secret Selling System, which is just kind of a generic marketing class that Perry Belcher and I did together. Like 99% Perry, but on just general selling. And so it's, this book kind of explains my general manifesto of invisible selling. If you'd like to know how another way that we do selling, we have this course called Secret Selling. So it was a good little tie-in, since they both dealt with selling. And then on the thank you page now, so the transaction was done. On the thank you page, there was an optional video where I told them, hey, if you'd like to go and learn more information about this thing called the machine, you can click over and check it out. At this point, that didn't convert nearly as well. But again, everybody who went in got as an added bonus these 3 videos. And so it was, the very next day, it's like, hey, here's bonus video number 1. Go check it out. And that was, of course, the first pre-launch video. And so they went through all the pre-launch videos, which tied directly back into the book, and then they went through the full launch process, and it converted really, really well. And it's still it's a perpetual campaign that we have running today. At any given time, if you get an invisible selling machine, I think it's invisibleselling.com, there is a perpetual launch going. I mean, if you buy the book, you're going to go through the launch for the machine. And we're always driving Facebook traffic into that book, so we're constantly driving book sales. And we can do that because of the back end, right? That's why that book will always sell. That
Yeah.
book will always sell because I can always afford to drive traffic and sales into it. And we've never
Yep.
had any affiliates promoted or anything like that. It's just our list and paid traffic.
That's awesome. And on that note, this is a random side question that I wanted to ask. So I'm glad you brought up the Facebook aspect of it. Are you guys running much Facebook video ads to that book,
You
or
know,
just in general?
we're not doing a ton of Facebook. Early on when they were doing Facebook video ads, the way that they were charging for them wasn't as great. And so I
Yeah,
would defer that question to Molly, because Molly, Molly Pittman she deserves all the credit for
she's awesome.
most of the smart stuff that comes out at Molly and Russ and Rich. I just get to take credit for it. But yeah, no, I would defer to Molly on that one, because I remember we were talking and we were really excited about it, and kind of early on we're like, oh, this is looking good. But then the way that they were charging for
The
it
view
didn't,
for views,
for
yeah.
views, it wasn't as good. Now my understanding is that they're going to change that, and so
I
I
think
think
they
it's
just did.
that's it. Okay, that
Yeah.
Molly had told me that she said they were going to change it, and so my guess is that we're going to go back and retest that again very, very, very soon. Because I
Well,
mean, video in posts works really well for engagement. I mean, we're testing. We do YouTube retargeting all the time, and that works great. So it only makes sense that video will work. I think Facebook. I think they maybe got a little aggressive on their end and how they wanted to charge their
yeah,
advertisers, and I can't hate them for that, right? They got to make theirs, but I think they realized, like, we might have been a little stingy, and I think they went back
yeah.
and reworked some stuff, which is going to be good for advertisers. I think it'll work
Oh,
really well.
absolutely. Because then I think you're right. They did get aggressive. And so then people were like, all right, cool. I'll just go to YouTube and retarget there, like you guys are doing, right?
Right,
And so
right.
then they're like, wait. Maybe we can talk about this again.
And I just want to give them both money, right? To me, it's
Mhm.
not. I'm not going to play favorites.
Yeah.
I'll give some to all of you guys. So because
No,
the ROI is so good.
oh, absolutely. On the back end of the book, which did better between the DM Labs and the machine? Like which did better?
Oh, I mean, the vast majority of the revenue from that, certainly within the first 30 days, was from the machine, right?
Mhm.
And secret selling system actually did really, really well too. So if we're going to look at immediate revenue, right? If we're just going to look at immediate revenue, and we look at immediate as like basically first 72 hours, right? So a visitor hits first 72 hours, we consider that immediate. So the vast majority of the immediate revenue came from that secret selling system upsell, which was upsell number 2. And that sold for, I believe, $297. Okay, so they went from a $7 book up to $297. We might have also tested some other price points, but I think it was around $297 was where we went. That generated the vast majority of the immediate revenue. Now the 30 and 60-day revenue wound up being trumped by the machine, but that took some time. It took some time because the conversion rate, obviously, for that, it's just a longer sales cycle when you're talking about a perpetual launch. In the perpetual launch, we're not even asking for the order until I think it's 12 to 14 days into that series before we even ask them to buy. It takes a little bit of time to build, and so certainly immediate revenue is fairly small on the machine. You've got the people that go through and they see the thank you page, they watch the video, they say, yeah, I'm interested, and they buy immediately. Those people are pretty few and far between. So those generate the revenue. But for me, all that revenue that gets generated, that's just that's what gives me the revenue that I need to put into the advertising to get subscribers into Digital Marketer Lab, right? So all that other stuff great. I'm not pocketing all that money for the most part. I'm putting it right back into the campaign because of what I want as subscribers into Digital Marketer Lab. And we want to, we have a goal of crossing 25,000 active members by the end of 2015. And so to do that, we need a lot of different funnels that are producing, new acquisition funnels producing new members. And as long as those acquisition funnels are running at break even or better, producing brand new members at break even or better, then we're going to turn. We're going to keep going. So it's
Got
a
it.
little
So
bit different way of thinking about it, right? And you can't take all the money and put it right back in your pocket. You got to reinvest it if you want to grow.
absolutely. So it sounds like the focus for you guys is on DM Labs, and is that because of the recurring revenue aspect? And I imagine, I mean, if you get them in DM Labs, then obviously at some point they'll see secret selling system, they'll see the machine, they'll see all that.
Yeah, I mean that's our core business, right? That's our evergreen product. Products as a product come and go. They'll go in fashion, they'll go out of fashion. You know, people see the machine, and even though the machine is an evergreen product, right? Their email campaigns, they're going to be people who see it and be like, oh, that's old, right? I mean, for the most part, products, you got maybe 12 to 18 months. And this isn't unique to the marketing space. This is true in just about every market. You look at why Apple has to come out and refresh your iPhone and iPads and stuff like that. I mean, people want the new. It's just the way our culture works. They want the new. And just slapping a 2.0 on it usually isn't good enough. But when it's a subscription, when it's a membership, you can deliver the new without having to sell the new constantly, right? And so for me, I always want somebody in some type of subscription. That's where the stability of business comes from. That's when you can really say, okay, we're a real company. We're really growing here because look, we have this. And it's not this just kind of up and down whipsaw, revenue whipsaw that a lot of businesses go through. And so that's why that's our primary focus. Everything that we have is built around. It's also the best thing that we do. And yeah, like you said, once somebody's a member of Digital Marketer Lab, the chance that they're going to buy something else is incredibly high. Incredibly high. I mean that they are the first when we release something new to go out and buy it.
Got it. And so, I mean, I know this has been a focus, like with Perry's side of the business, that the subscription base is huge, and that's been a focus.
Yep.
With digital marketers, is this the first big push at having like a huge continuity, recurring revenue? Like, is this the first like time you're really making a huge go at it?
I mean, we've been doing it. So the new version of Digital Marketer Lab launched in, gosh, it was about April of 2014.
Hmm.
So it's about 18 months old, about a year and a half old now, which is crazy. It's not very old. Now we have had different iterations of Digital Marketer Lab in the past, and just candidly, we just didn't do a very good job with it.
Hmm.
We did what a lot of people do when they do subscriptions, which is they say, what's the minimum that I can do to get to basically deliver on what I'm charging, right? The subscription was just kind of the thing of it's okay, you bought this, now join this over here and you'll love it and it's awesome. And you get people in when they buy one thing, and then you just kind of hope to keep them by having enough stuff there. Well, we wanted to make sure that with Digital Marketer Lab, it was the best offering out there, period, end of story. So we just threw the kitchen sink at it. But we did it in a way that was strategic and consumable, and not just like you're getting insanely overwhelmed, and provided a ton of support and community. That was the big part, the community, because people will join a subscription, they'll join a membership to fix a problem or because of a perceived value. They stay for the community. I've known that to be true for a while. I don't remember where I heard it first. It was the old saying with subscription and membership was people join to get out of hell, they stay because it's heaven. Again, don't quote me on that. You can quote me as quoting somebody else who I don't remember who said it on that. But so I've known this to be true. We just never really knew how to do that. And with the introduction of just something as simple as a Facebook group, right? As an additional bonus, that a closed Facebook group and having that community aspect, just that was so big. But no, I mean, we've had a number of pushes for Digital Marketer Lab. I mean, kind of every time we offer an execution plan, it's Digital Marketer Lab on the back. We'll, every quarter or so do a dollar trial offer for a very short period of time to get a bunch of members in. So it's fairly recent in that it's only been going on for the last 18 months, But that's not because we didn't try before. We tried before, we just failed because we didn't do a good enough job on the deliverables side.
Got it. And so now you're stepping up to the deliverables, and this is kind of coming front and center.
Yeah, well, now I'm really proud of it, right? Now I can say this is good. I mean, we just killed, like Digital Marketer Lab was launched, gosh, I think in 2008, 2009 originally. And when we first launched, it was actually really, really good. I put a lot of work into it, and then it got hard. And so we killed it. I mean, we killed it. Stopped the billing, shut the thing down. I mean, it was still generating six figures a month, but it was so bad. I was so embarrassed by it, that we just killed it. And people were like, "Why'd you stop billing me? That was good." I was like, "No, it wasn't, dude. You're remembering the early days when I was actually doing a good job." And I just in trying to run a business, I wasn't able to fulfill on all the obligations of doing. It's not that I didn't want to. It's just that I was trying to do everything. And so when we went back and I re-engineered Digital Marketer Lab, I said, "There's going to be people whose sole responsibility is just this
Mm,
membership. Like there has to be people who this is all they do. There
yeah.
has to be a team built around this. It's too valuable." And so we hired some key people to really help get that thing going. And I mean, we got somebody who all they do is they're just responsible for the Facebook group and just making sure that every question that gets asked in there gets an answer. I mean, that's their whole thing. They don't necessarily answer it themselves, but they'll ping somebody in the office, say, "Hey, can you respond to this?" Or they'll ping another member and say, "Hey, I remember you talking about this. Would you mind responding to this?" And they're engaging, and that's their whole thing.
Mm,
That's Susie. She's a community manager, right? In the past, I never would have made that type of investment. And I think most businesses won't. They won't hire a full-time in-office person because I think we have a really great, fantastic offering out there that I'm really, really proud of, and I'm proud to highlight it and proud to tell people, "Hey, you should be a member." Because now I know when they get in now, they'll say, "Wow, this is great." Whereas in the past, the better we were at selling it, the faster we would convince everybody that we sucked. Now it's I'm proud to sell it because I know it's really, really good.
that's great. And that's cool to hear how you guys made the transition from that being front and center and focus. And because I feel like a lot of people relate to that, right? You're running the business like you were, and so you can't keep the content good. And so like this constant juggle between the two. But once you made the decision to, okay, we're going to invest in this and put some full-time people in there, and that is their thing, then it becomes so much easier. Now you can actually sell it better, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds logical. It's hard to do on the front, right? It's hard to make that
Yeah, right.
investment before the thing is making money.
Mm-hmm.
And as entrepreneurs, we think we can do it all. I'll be the first to admit that I've made a lot of mistakes in the past where, and usually it came from a spirit of, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And it came from a spirit of just getting overcommitted because I thought I could. And in trying to do it all, I either did some of it poorly or in some cases I completely failed and
Yeah.
I didn't manage to do it all. And I had to say, "I'm very sorry, I failed." And that's no fun. Nobody wants to do that. But I mean, if you're there, as a content creator, as an author, you're in good company, right?
Yeah.
And not just me, right? You're in good company with a lot of people who have set out to do something and have found that it's overwhelming and that it's hard. And sometimes you just have to say, I can't do this right now. I got to finish this thing. Or I can't do these because I have to do this. I have to focus on this. This is too important. And that's where we were with Lab. That's where we were with the book. I mean, there were lots of stuff that we set aside, projects that would have that would have generated more revenue, but the book was important. It was
Yeah.
too important of an asset. I knew that while it in and of itself wouldn't make a lot of money, it was too important of an asset to not invest in. That was hard to do. Hard to do when you got payroll and office and you
Yeah.
yourself like to eat, right? I mean, but that's business, right? That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Absolutely. And that's more long-term thinking, which I'm curious to kind of circle back to. We talked about the 60-day value of on the back end of that book, how that kind of shook out with the short-term revenue, DM labs and all that stuff. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more long-term. I know this hasn't shaken out yet, and it will still, keep shaking out. But what about like the 2-year value? Where do you see that between DM labs, secret selling, and the machine? Where do you see like that? You think DM labs kind of pulls ahead and then sells the other two, or where do you see that breakdown on the back end revenue?
Yeah, it gets hard at that point to pinpoint, like to go straight back to specific product and to really to say, okay, well this product here is responsible for this. right? So that we don't necessarily track it by that. What we
Hmm.
do is we look at it and we say, okay, this funnel, this campaign, this acquisition campaign that brought someone in, we want to make sure that that particular campaign as a whole, if it's 30-day, if it ROIs in 30 days or less, then bar the doors, we're coming. Because I mean, it's hard. Like if you're self-funding, like I mean, we're fortunate now. Like we're a good-sized company. We've been able to set funds aside to make certain investments, even if they don't pay off immediately. But if you're just getting started, if you're shoestringing this thing, if it pays off in 30 days or less, you can fund that with credit cards. Right? I'm not saying suggesting go out there and rack up a bunch of credit cards, but to make to do a $500 buy on Facebook, right? As a risk, for example. I mean, if you're a business owner, I think that's a good risk. You could spend $500 on stupider stuff than that all the
Yeah,
time. I
absolutely.
mean, I'd much rather sit on Facebook and then look at it and say, okay, I've got from now until, I got 30 days before I need to pay this bill. So I got 30 days to make that $500 back, right? Now, when you get out into 60 days, that's okay, I got to pay the bill. And now it's 60-day ROI. So for a lot of funnels, if they're really working, we can stretch it to 60 and even to 90. For us, it's difficult to justify going out past 90 days. Lots of companies can. Lots of companies can. If you think about the really big, like big cell phone companies, they're willing to go 2 years negative. A lot of big SaaS companies that are funded, same thing. They're willing to go. They'll go 12 months all day long. And really, what they're looking at is they want to make sure that their cost of acquisition is at least one third their lifetime customer value. So they're going to assess, okay, we believe that our lifetime customer value is $2,000, right? So let's say $3,000 because the math is easier. We believe our lifetime customer value is $3,000. Therefore, if I can spend $1,000 to acquire a customer, I'm happy to do that, right? I'm happy to do that. That's what the big funded companies can do. That's not, and it sounds great, but that's where and we've adopted that, and we got into some pretty big cash flow crunches because sometimes you just can't afford to wait for that
Hmm.
LTV. Like if it takes 5 years to experience the full value of that lifetime, then hopefully you got some cash stacked up that you can pay off these $1,000 acquisition bills for. So for us, that's not how we approach it. We want to make sure that our cost of acquisition, right? Our cost of acquisition is break even or better if it's 30 days or less or 60 days or less. And on some funnels, if we know because we've been running them for a while that they will pay off, that they're good quality customers coming through there, then we're willing to go at a 90-day ROI. But once we have that, then really what we're looking at is, okay, great, we've got all these customers here that are now customers, right? How can we maximize the value of these customers? And I don't just say that our lifetime customer value is pegged at X, because it's my job to make sure that it continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow.
Got
And,
it.
and we could make certain estimates on what it's going to be in 2 years. It's just not particularly helpful to me. It doesn't inform the decisions that I'm making. So I don't bother going into that math because worst case, there's a really good chance that it's going to get me into some type of false hope, and I can have Excel tell me that we're just crushing it, but my bank account tell me that I'm not. And
Yep.
and that's just the difference between me. I mean, like I said, we're a big company. I fully expect we're an 8-figure company. We should be into 9 figures, not by the end of this year, but by the end of the next year. I expect to break $100 million. But you still can't break me out of this startup mindset. I
Yep.
won't do it because I've seen too many companies do it. I've seen too many of them get comfortable, and I've seen them die the slow cash flow death.
And there's
So,
nothing worse.
no, I've seen a lot of really successful companies with great products and great marketing die because they thought they could wait a lot longer than they actually could to get that customer. So,
Yep. Awesome. Well, two final questions. Next, the last one is, you guys made an announcement recently about switching over from the launch model to more evergreen and perpetual, like you talked about. I'm curious what went into that decision and how that looks like for you guys moving forward.
yeah, I mean, we've never really been a big launch-centric business. We would do
Hmm.
maybe one or two a year, and that'll likely still continue. I don't think that the launch model. So let me distinguish between the launch. When I say the word launch model and what I meant it in the context of that,
Yep.
there are a lot of businesses that are launch-centric businesses. So all they do is launch. They launch one product after another, after another, after another, after another, and they're only ever as good as their previous launch. So they work to build an offer, they work to build a product, they work to build a market, they work to build all the enthusiasm, all the collateral around the launch, and then they launch, and then they make their money, and then they spend it. And that's like the Hollywood hits model. I'm not saying, I mean, there's a place for that, right? There's a place for that. When you have a movie that you spend a couple $100 million on that goes off and does $1 billion, that's a win. And there are people who have made their careers out of that model in Hollywood. I don't have the stomach for it. For me, I don't have the stomach for it. I don't want to do it. And so no, what I really was saying is I want to get away from having businesses that are so launch centric or promotion centric to where we're only ever as good as our last promotion. I want to be able to say, which I can, if we choose just to kick back this week and not do anything, we're going to be fine because we've got subscription revenue that just that in and of itself is good. We have just ongoing sales of people coming to our website through social and through organic and through referral, people finding us who know about our brands, who are coming to our site and they're just buying, they're just shopping. And we have enough products in our arsenal that we can go back to any given time and say, hey, remember this one? You should go check it out. Or hey, this subsection, you should go and check, this out. And so if we do a launch, and we will, because again, when I say the launch model, I think the Jeff Walker style product launch is great. It works. It'll always work. So there's nothing wrong with that as a model for selling. There's just a problem when that is the sole method of selling in your business. At least it's a problem for
Got
me.
it.
Not
So
everybody.
you're saying it's the gravy, not the main dish.
For me, yeah, for me. But again, like, you go to Hollywood and you look at these Hollywood producers who they're all about the hit.
Yeah.
That's what they're all about, and they've made a very successful living off of that. I don't have the stomach for it. For the people who do, I think it could be fine. I mean, I know people who that's what they want to do. They want to do a big launch, they want to make a bunch of money, and they want to go sit on the
Yep.
beach for a long time. The problem comes though when you do that launch and it doesn't make what you hoped it would make. Then you get into this vicious cycle of, oh, we need to do another one, we need to do another one. You keep going back to
Yeah.
the well, you keep going back to the well. Each one becomes considerably less effective. You keep drawing against the brand equity that you've built, and
Yep.
eventually you're left with nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're Nicolas Cage. No offense, Nicolas Cage. Although it's hard not to take offense to that. But yeah.
Yeah. So when you guys are doing the launches, you're doing it almost on top of the perpetual funnel that you've already built, and it's just an accelerant. Like it's using the same funnel, but then just getting a little bit more traffic, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, so it depends. I mean, if we come out with a totally new product, then we're going to launch it.
Got it.
I mean, we're going to come out with a totally new product, we're going to launch it, and if that launch goes well, then we'll perpetuate it. For the most part, when we do a launch for a new product for the first time, we launch it as a coaching program, right? So we launch it as a coaching program, meaning there's some aspect of, you know, what we're doing now, right? There's some Q&A, there's webinars, there's more personal interaction, there's more involved, from me. Whereas when it's perpetuated, the coaching portion is pulled out. Price doesn't change, but the coaching portion is pulled out. And so then when we come back and we do a relaunch, so for example, we just did a relaunch, gosh, about 2 months ago of the machine coaching program, right? Now you can go in and get the machine after you buy Invisible Selling, but you won't get the coaching portion of it. Whereas the people that bought 2 months ago, which is now closed, and actually the coaching portion is about to end as well because we just are going through the 8-week cycle. They got 8 weeks of coaching, with me, getting on webinars once a week, and Richard talking about, okay, guys, so at this point you should be here, here, and here, and here's your homework, and all right, what are your questions, right? Let's do office hours. You can get to me directly. The people who buy through the perpetual don't get that, and so that's another way that we distinguish between our launches and our perpetual ones. It's also how we're able to close a launch and have it actually close. The offer has definitely changed. The people that got in during that launch did get a better deal than the people that get in after, unless you just don't care about the coaching portion.
Got it. And then final question, what would be your advice to someone thinking about doing a book to use it for the purpose that you did, for the back end and for growing your business?
Yeah, so I think if I were going back and doing it again, and I will do this, the next book that I write, I'm going to start it as a webinar. I found that a 90 minute to 2 hour long webinar is it wound up being about a 180-page book. So when you added some screenshots and examples and stuff like that, so you can pad it up a little bit more and get it over 200 pages pretty easily, which is that's a good sized book. I mean, that's a really great size. It's not so thick. I mean, people actually get through it, but it's a good, tight, concise, and that gives you an opportunity to test the titles and subtitles. Like I said, bullet points. So you're starting to build the collateral. And the thing is, if people ask a lot of questions, if the engagement's really high, if they're really excited about it, then great. If they're not, then it's probably not that great of a book, right? If you think you have the most amazing title in the world, and you do it as a webinar and nobody signs up, it ain't that great of a title, right? Sorry, you missed. You got to be willing, but at least you found out now before you went and printed, 10,000. Um, so, so that's what I would do first. I would do a webinar. Either you have it transcribed, but don't have that be as the structure, as the starting point. Either yourself or an editor. You can have an editor go through and a ghostwriter. I've never had any luck with ghostwriters. I've tried them over the years because I've always wanted a book. I've never had a ghostwriter produce for me anything that was even remotely usable. But when I was able to hand this transcript off, now I had something that was, because it was my words, my thoughts. I was able to say it in my way. I was able to give my examples, tell my stories, and they were able to listen to that again and again and again and again. And like I said, the structure was sound. I opened with a story, and then I told what the result of the story was, and I made a big promise. And then I said, okay, let's keep going. If you want to know how to get this promise, let me tell you the steps that I did. And then I walked through step by step by step by step. And then at the end, I took questions, right? And so then at the end of the book, I countered and overcame certain objections. I mean, you could see how it really flows into the structure of a book very, very, very well. And so we took a fair bit of time, had a line editor go through and edit it. I edited it myself. I mean, there were still things that we missed. Had a professional cover designed, did all the stuff that we're supposed to do. And then we sent off for printing. And we used Bang Press, B-A-N-G. Bang is the company that we used to print our books, and they did a great job. Actually, I was turned on to them by Tucker Max. If you know who Tucker is, multiple New York Times bestselling author, and on his last book, essentially went self-published. Still had it distributed through Simon & Schuster, but essentially self-published. It's a fantastic story. You ought to Google that if you're interested in the whole self-publishing concept, because he's really was one of the forerunners in this space. So Tucker turned me on to Bang, and then we had the books. Now what I did is I shot a video of myself saying, making a very special offer for the book. That became the sales page. And then the upsell, well, and I probably should have started here, is what is the thing that you ultimately want to sell, right? So a book is not the end result. You got to have what the end result is going to be, and the book needs to flow from that. So since I had what the end result was going to be, I had the book, I ran a special offer, upsold the thing that I had, that I knew worked well, that I knew sold, that I already had all the launch collateral, all the sales collateral for it. And so if somebody want to duplicate the process, then I think that's basically what you do. Step one, though, is to have the thing at the end.
Absolutely. Awesome, Ryan. Well, this has been a great interview. I've really enjoyed walking through this process and hearing the back end and hearing kind of just how you did it through a webinar and then the whole process from that. So thank you for sharing. And before we hop off here, where can people go to find out more about you, more about the book?
So the book is at invisiblesellingmachine.com. And that's also just an example if you want a page that you can model for kind of how to lay out a book offer page if you're selling the book yourself. And I would recommend, even if you don't want to buy the book, click on the order page and go to the order form and then go to leave. You need to typically be on the order form for, I think, 5 or 10 seconds, because we don't have our exit pops trigger immediately. We only want them to trigger for people who've actually engaged for a little bit. But if you go to the order form and hang around for 5 or 10 seconds, and then you go to leave, you go to basically to mouse up, you'll see that exit pop that then sends people over to Amazon. That was a biggie. That was Richard Lindner's idea. Give him all the credit for that. He's the president of Digital Marketer, and that was his idea, and that was great. We had a lot of sales every single day from Amazon, from people leaving our order form saying, I don't know. Oh, it's on Amazon. We also get people who click the link saying, no, it's fine. I'll go back and order it from you. Because people say, oh, knowing it's available on Amazon, is helpful. So I'll order
Ah.
from you. So we kind of get a little double there. So I would definitely go, I would go to invisiblesellingmachine.com. If nothing else, just see that cool little tip, and also just the structure of the offer. Just don't knock it off word for word, please. That happens from time to time. Please don't be one of those people. And then for me, I mean, just digitalmarketer.com is my is where, you know, I get to talk about marketing with all my friends at Digital Marketer. So those
Awesome.
places.
Ryan, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you could be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. All right, number 1, I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help the podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're on the fence about scheduling a publishing consultation call with my team, maybe you're not quite ready for that, I've got some free training that I think will be really helpful for you. All right, all you have to do is go to register to sign up. Go to selfpublishing.com/free training. When you do, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my new book published. And on that training, you're going to learn the next steps, so how to implement with your book. So how to write, how to publish, how to launch successfully. So go to register right now at selfpublishing.com/free training. I'll see you there.